everything is going according to plan. We're going live on YouTube right now. It says we're live. All right. I guess we're live. Well,
I didn't break all the technology.
no. I almost did. But yeah, thanks for joining me, Elle. Thank you, everybody. If you're here, say hi. I can't tell who's here because all I can see is the chat window. Yeah, we're going to be doing a spoiler-full discussion today of Elle's wonderful book here, Starlight Jewel, which I actually have a copy of on hand. I assume if you're here in the spoiler chat, you don't really need an introduction to what the book is. It's Spriggans, it's politics, it's seduction and thievery, and there's all kinds of great stuff in here, and I'm excited to dig in with you. So, Elle, how are you doing?
I'm great. Yeah. I still have an eye, just in case anybody's worried. I still have both of them. I just I dusted and it went poorly.
No, it's okay. Plus, we get the nice pirate look for the inaugural episode
Yes.
here.
I
You're
even
just
got
trying to
like
add cool points.
an eye patch with stars on it to match the book, even though there aren't actually many stars in the book.
Yeah, there's fallen stars, which we should talk
that's true.
about.
But they're actually meteorites. They're not even actually stars. They're just rocks.
Okay, well that's just as cool. And honestly, that's what I thought they were too. Fallen stars, meteorites. Makes sense how people would think that's the case. Tom Mock is here. Welcome, Tom.
Yeah, just to
Good see
spoil
you.
everything, the series is actually sci-fi. I
It's like
disappoint
sci-fi
everybody.
on the back end, but then there's like a front end that's just fantasy.
Yeah, you'll never actually see the sci-fi, but the meteorites are how like the Spriggans were made, and all the other weird creatures like the basilisks. Yeah, but anyway, go on.
Okay, we're definitely going to get into that. All right, so on my for my own part, I apologize if I look like haggard or anything like that. I got 4 hours of sleep, but I have just finished my coffee in the Archibald Royal Raccoon of Tarth.
It's
Little mug
beautiful.
here.
I love the Archibald art.
This was drawn by E.C. Greaves, right?
Yes, yeah. E.C. Greaves drew that, and then the Grimm and Cletus art,
Yeah,
and
right in the middle of the book. Where is that?
other things. I feel like he drew something else. My brain is completely blanking, but it's all in the merch shop.
Mm-hmm.
He gave me beautiful merch to sell to people.
Yeah, you really do have a good merch shop. It inspired me to want to put my store back up.
Yeah.
Did he draw this one too, in the front of the book?
No, that actually is Kieran Larwood, who writes a middle grade series that is actually really funny. It's about rabbits. It's kind of like Redwall, but with rabbits instead of. But yeah, he was one of the first authors that I met when I like got onto Discord.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like shortly before publishing the book, and I couldn't find anyone to do the frontispiece because I knew 0 people and I had no concept of how to find people
It's hard.
online because I'm a hermit. And and so I got onto this Discord and I kind of asked in one of the chats, and Kieran Larwood showed up. The Podkin series, that's what he wrote. And also another series that I am blanking on the name of, but it has like cat creatures instead of rabbit creatures. And I dropped his book that was signed and had a personal illustration in it into the Swamp Creek after I got it.
Oh no.
Just tried to take a photo and just like it went into the creek. It was lovely. I got it back, but it's a little funky now.
I know, it's just it's well used.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, you have a lot of really good art in this. The cover art was done by your boss, right? Is that right?
So it was done by my boss and my best friend. So we've known each other since we were like 13. I was like the maid of honor at our wedding. Very proud of that.
Oh,
But Samantha Slaughter is the one who did the art, and then my day job boss, who does graphic design but has never done a cover before. I wanted him to take the purple out of the trees, and then he did that, and I was like, okay. You know,
so you asked for like a small tweak,
amazing.
and then he just like went ham and made you this awesome cover.
Yeah, basically, he took the art and made it look like a real book cover, and I was just kind of like shocked and appalled, and I sent it back to like my artist friend who, is also kind of friends with him, and she like very begrudgingly was like, yeah, I like it. That bark took me so long.
Yeah, no need for textures or anything like that.
Yeah, no, all the textures that she worked so hard on completely gone. But yeah, they did an amazing job. Neither of them has ever worked on a cover, and
Oh wow.
Slaughter is not like she's not like an artist that you can hire for commission. She like went to college for art history and chemistry, and now she like does like preserving art stuff. Like she sent me a picture of a really cool like antique Bible that she like put back together and stuff.
Mm.
So she just does art on the side like for fun, but it's amazing and I wish she would do it for real. But
It's like
yeah.
pure art, not for any like monetary gain or anything.
Yeah, and I do kind of have to harass her a little bit. Like she wanted to do my cover, but mostly I think because she didn't want anyone else to do my cover.
She was just very attached.
Yeah, she just didn't want somebody else to screw it up, and I kind of had to like be like, well, I'm gonna have to hire somebody else if you don't get it done. You know, I'm gonna be releasing in like a month.
Oh wow, you're cutting it close. Well, she did a great
Yeah,
job.
we definitely cut it close, and the new cover she has submitted the art for, but now my boss has got some eye problems going on,
Mm.
so we're kind of waiting to see if he can fix that before he turns. And she just did silhouettes this time. She didn't do like the full art because I didn't want to be, cruel and unusual.
Do all
Um,
the work and then put it behind the shader again.
yeah, I do use her original art for things though. Like my boss has made some really cool ads and stuff, just like kind of making it a monotone color, but keeping all the textures and things like that to just make cool stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you say she's doing the new book, you mean book 2, right? Allstringer's Wrath.
Well, she is going to do that too, but she hasn't
Hmm.
started book two's cover yet. But the new cover for book one, so I'm kind of trying to
Oh.
appeal to the correct audience. Finally,
Too many people think it's
even
romanticy.
yeah, I wasn't. I had no clue what I was doing when I asked for the cover, and she had never read the book. And so she had no clue, and like I was trying to tell her like the things that I might want, and she was like, "That's not gonna look good. That's not gonna look good." And I
Mm.
was like, "Yeah, okay." I just like, and so we came up with a simpler idea. For some reason, I was thinking I wanted a scene from the book, and that's like the dumbest idea. Like a scene from the book is gonna be way too complicated. It's gonna have too many people, and so she came up with that. But she didn't even really know what genre it was in. I didn't really
Mm.
know what genre it was in. So it was we just didn't think about things like, what that cover was going to signal, and
Mm-hmm.
that, a man and a woman on the cover, neither of them looking threatening or afraid. They're both kind of in these just relaxed poses. There's no weapons, and she's wearing a dress and she's got her hair down. Like if she's, you know, like an athletic assassin type character, like you would expect her to have like her hair up and like
Mm-hmm.
the messy bun. And so this next cover will be a little bit closer to, I think, like telling people what the genre actually is versus just being gorgeous. And it is gorgeous. The cover is gorgeous, but it will not indicate, Beauty and the Beast with her dad. Uh, so
Well,
just didn't even cross my mind.
no, the whole, I guess, like craft of picking a cover and like the marketing aspect of a book is just like a whole another beast, and maybe we could talk about that later. I just wanted to say that Gothbricks 2000 is here, and that sounds like Yuval, I think, Yuval Kordov, whose book we both really enjoyed. He said raccoons.
Yeah. Yes, I loved Hand of God, and I'm so excited. I made my 2024 reading goals, and his sequel is like gonna be soon. Like
Oh
I'm
yeah.
gonna make time for it and cheat on my Swiftbow TBR again. But I feel guilty because like my last like 5 books have been cheating on my Swiftbow TBR.
You just
And
got to give it up.
I
You're a
do.
mood reader. Just accept it.
I know, but it's been a rough couple of reading months, so I'm hoping that soon I can get back to it. Because I am really excited about Petition is my next book, and I'm
Delilah's
super
book.
curious. Yeah, like I have no idea from the beginning like what it's really about, but it was written so well that I feel like I'm excited to read it. I want to read it, but I wanted to read the sequels more. I hate leaving things unfinished,
Yeah.
like when you read the first book and then it's going to be like a year until you read the second book.
I know, and
I
then you
just
forget
want to read them all at
everything.
once.
And
Yeah.
well, let me know when you're going to start All of Our Sins, because I also want to read that, and we should just do a buddy read
You
or
can buddy
something.
read.
Yeah.
You probably read a little bit faster than me. I'm like a snail, like, and also a squirrel. Like, I'll read for 5 minutes and then I'll put it down and I'll do something else. And then I'll read another book for 5 minutes and then I'll come back. And somehow that's never bothered me. I know other people like to just like read through, but it ends up taking me forever to read a book.
Oh, that's okay. Everybody's got their own style. Ed Greaves is here. Don't
Hey, Ed.
tell my boss
Yeah.
I'm at work. Okay, hopefully your boss is not listening and couldn't hear that. All right, yeah. So speaking of raccoons, Archibald. I want to talk about Archibald in the book.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a disappointingly small amount of Archibald in the book.
Yeah,
In book
given how
one.
much you post about raccoons on Twitter and everything and talk about Archibald, I was expecting a much bigger part in the first book. He's just sort of briefly
Yeah.
mentioned.
Yeah, he isn't even named in book one, but he does get a big. The reason I started talking about him so much was because I was writing about him in book two, but then I realized like people are going to really expect there to be so much raccoon content in this book, and he's literally like mentioned in a letter once, and then like you see him in the corner of the room when you meet Henry. And so, yeah, it's a disappointingly small amount of raccoon stuff.
Well, that
But
just leaves room for expansion in book two. Are we going to be seeing more of Archibald in book two?
we are. There's a lot more of Archibald in book two. He gets actually his own like chapter where he's featured, where he's like he gets to be the hero,
Oh, yeah, that's
and
awesome.
and so it's kind of like a comic relief chapter in between like somebody being eviscerated, and you know there's a lot of other stuff going on in that book, but in the middle of that there's a chapter where a raccoon gets to be like the main character.
So we're going from being severely traumatized to a little bit of comic relief, some raccoon
Yeah.
shenanigans, and then back to
Mhm.
some trauma.
Then back to being traumatized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like
I do think
your
I
books.
killed a lot more people in the sequel than I killed in the first book, just because it was so frustrating, when I was starting to write this second book, having so many characters. And like that review from Editor's Weekly will haunt me till my death. Like the innumerable characters, and they meant it as a compliment, but
That's what they
it's
said.
terrible.
Innumerable characters.
Yes.
They're beyond
They were like,
counting.
the innumerable characters in Starlight Jewel have depth, and or something like that. And like I just every time I sit down to write, I think innumerable characters. What am I going to do with my innumerable characters today?
Yeah, that's stressful.
Kill them. Yeah. So one of my favorite reviews, just because it has that, like it was a good review, but also like very true. Like I should be called out for having too many characters.
I mean, it's hard once you start adding them in. You just want to, like, especially with your characters, like it feels like they have so much history and everything, and it's like they would all know each other's names, so you don't want to just be like some unnamed Spriggan hybrid over here.
Yeah, and it's like in my head it seems so simple. Like they're all existing here in this world, just like, and we know that many people in real life. Like even me, a hermit, I know like as many characters as I have in the book. But then once you try to fit it into sentences on the page, and like these people's stories not stopping once they're away from the main character, like when Grimm is in Tarth, like life doesn't just like stop. He has to have a plot that's still going while her plot is going. Then it becomes like really complicated to try to rein them all in. And then if you have them all in one area, so like what I'm doing right now with the editing is trying to I was having them all come together to one area for this big battle, but then after it, like, what am I going to do with all of you?
Yeah, like how do
you're
they
all here.
separate
Like,
and go their own ways after that?
Yeah, you can't have a conversation with 20 characters in one
Yeah.
spot. It just doesn't work.
No.
So it's the unexpected things that you really don't even think about when you're setting up the plot. You're just like, oh, merrily writing. And then like you get to book two and it doesn't work. Yeah, so I'm killing people. That's my solution.
Yeah, and that's a valid solution. You just you've already set up the meteorites. You just bring them in.
Yes.
Make one big
Every day.
meteor.
My temptation is just to be like, a new fallen star has come. It's going to combine all these characters into one Edwards like monster like you have in your hunting cabin. Like just a mass of all these terrible characters that I've got.
That sounds like it would become like one of the demons in Yuval's books, actually.
Yes. Yeah. You guys have much scarier monsters than Starlight Jewel? Like, I struggle to kind of gauge how dark Starlight Jewel is because it doesn't have that sort of, I don't know, Eldritch Frankenstein monsters that you
Hmm.
guys have in yours. But it does have children prostitutes and like, the catatonic mother,
Yeah, the effacer.
like,
Like it's
yeah,
dark in its own way, which is
yeah, but it's
it's
like
unique in how it's dark, I'd say.
yeah, it's like lightly dark, but it's like I feel like people don't even notice these like weird dark elements. They
Hmm.
just like happily read along and like are enjoying how badass, Axley is and things like that. And they don't even notice that she's like a prostitute who is like got Stockholm syndrome because she was raised in this terrible environment.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Like there's definitely a lot of trauma there, just sort of unresolved and um, oh, I've lost my train of thought. I knew it would happen eventually. It only took 15 minutes.
hmm
Okay, so then let's see. Ed posted real life has innumerable characters. He finds it weird when every part of a story is handled by a tiny cast that makes it feel forced. Yeah, I would say I agree with that. And the fact that you have so many characters, innumerable characters, did really make the feel like, especially the city of Minilov and the Starlight Company, feel alive. Like there's stuff happening there, even if we don't see it all.
there's a lot of stuff that's happening. It's a lot of stuff. Like I enjoy it now when I like reread it, but like also I'm so afraid of forgetting this stuff. You get
Oh
into
yeah.
book 2 and you're like, am I going to forget to tie up this random, plot thread and somebody's going to notice. But like readers never notice the things that I think they're going to do.
Hmm.
Like they're so jarred by that like one time skip in chapter 13
You do get a lot of
and
mentions of that in your reviews.
I know. Everyone hates it. And I'm like, that's not even like the worst time skip for me. Like, I thought I wasn't going to publish because of the time skip later when they're going back to Minilov.
Hmm.
And it took me like months and months to fix that area so that that time skip wasn't noticeable. But then people were worried about this other time skip that I thought was like not a problem.
Well, you did enough to fix the later one, but apparently not the early one. I didn't have any problem with the time skip, so I don't really think it's a problem. Um,
Yeah, I think it's like people who are really used to like character driven stories don't find as much issue with the time skips and the pacing and the plot, but
hmm.
people who want like a real plot, they were talking about in one of the discords I'm in, the First Law trilogy.
Hmm.
And I just kind of like have been thinking about all the books that have influenced me and that I've read in the past like 10 years, and none of them have any plot. None of them. No, they're all character driven. Like they're all over the place. So it is like I think it's just a particular type of reader that doesn't actually care about plot,
Yeah.
But a lot of mine do seem to not enjoy the time skips. And I'm trying really hard in the second book to not have time skips,
Mm.
but I made such a big world, like, and in this book they're actually going to Ifer and Remora and even Ordem, or like some characters are,
I need to like
not
pull up the
Axley.
map here.
Yeah, well, like literally like the other side of the world, and some are going to
Okay.
like Vancouver, which is like that island in the middle,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. Sorry.
and
Here's what
so
I'm looking at.
like, and it takes a long time for the characters to get there, and I don't like writing about travel. I don't like reading about travel. Yeah, the beautiful map and all my regrets that are in it. Next series will definitely be in like one city. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
just
write
simplify things. That's what I did.
one.
Just we're staying in Leeuwen. You've all mentioned spreadsheets to keep track of your innumerable characters and what they're all doing if you're worried about not wrapping things up.
Yeah, I do have actually multiple spreadsheets. So I've got one spreadsheet for the hybrid gifts. So like which characters have like keen scent and quick step, and like that's super important for like writing the scenes, because
Mm-hmm.
like who's going to hear what and who's going to be heard and who's going to see what, and what can you like do with that to forward the plot. But I needed to keep that separate from like the backstories, so I have the backstories individually somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
and then like all the nationalities and character traits and like the basic like descriptions and things, so that somebody doesn't have like hazel eyes in one chapter and blue in like 4 chapters later. Which I really don't talk a lot about like non-hybrid eye colors, just because I don't even care what they look like. Like the hybrid eye color is important because they're hybrids, but
Yeah.
everybody else, it's like Camille has blue eyes, and that's, I'm pretty sure that's like, I think Grum has hazel eyes, but I've probably mentioned that one time like in the first scene with him there. So
Yeah. Not that big of a detail.
yeah, but you never know when something is going to come up again. Like I just
Yeah.
had to write a sentence about people from Vancouver, and I was like, what did I end up calling the people from Vancouver? Are they like Vanians? Are they
Vancouthers.
Toothians? Yeah. and and eventually I just decided that I would avoid saying it altogether and just like change the entire sentence so that I wouldn't have to figure that out,
That's a
because
classic
that
writer
was not in
move.
my notes. Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. So
Yeah, because I
speaking of,
could
oh
make it
god,
up, but then I don't know if I accidentally, or if I have put it somewhere else in the book and don't remember and just didn't add it to the notes. So it's best just to avoid the problem.
yeah, I feel like in that
If
case,
anybody,
then you
please
just
stop
say
me.
it's the character who got it wrong, not me. They just don't really. They have their own convention for naming things.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So, like you were saying, like people expect different things out of a book. Like everybody is. Some people are looking for plot. Some people like just character relationships and everything. I noticed. I noted in my review that the main focus in this book for me definitely was the character relationships and the themes. And the theme is sort of about like figuring out who you are and how your decisions affect who you are. And first of all, would you say that's an accurate summary of the theme, or would you put it differently? Like, how do you think about it?
Um, I think that's like the theme plot. Like that's what's happening for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like is actually figuring out who she is. But I think like the main theme I was trying to like convey is like the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Mm.
Um, so the quote in the beginning of the book I took from the Book of Job, and in short, if you've read the Book of Job and you know the context around it in the Bible, that quote, it basically is the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Mm.
Like Axley is trying to do good, but she doesn't actually know what good means, and she does bad instead. And a lot of bad, like kind of, if you take the summary of everything she does, and she starts to realize that as the book goes on, she kind of starts to be like, hey, I think maybe I shouldn't have done that murder. And
Start feeling a little bad about this murder.
yeah, maybe this murder is gonna come back to bite me now. And speaking of which, Ramus, I'm glad I finally get to say Ramus's name.
Yeah,
you know
he's alive.
like I feel like he's a lot of people's favorite characters. Like there's a number of reviews that say like, and my favorite character was somebody I couldn't mention.
Yeah.
And when I first published, one of my beta readers reviewed the book and actually did mention him. Like we talked about the book so much, she didn't actually remember that it was a spoiler, and so I was like, hey, please, please take it down. You're my first review. But yeah, it's really fun to write Ramus, and I feel like he's such a big part of the plot, but if you even hint at what the plot is in the second half of the book, you've given it away. Like
Yeah.
if you say like Heartfire is going to come into play at like, 50% of the way through the book or however far it is, you've given away the plot of the book. And honestly, I'm surprised that nobody has like guessed it or like said it was too obvious early on, because I tell people what Heartfire is,
Mm-hmm.
and I tell people that she loved Ramus and that she killed him, and I imply that she left before he was dead.
Mm.
And
Anybody who
nobody
dies
guesses.
off screen is not really dead.
Yeah. And I hate it when characters come back to life, but I wanted to do it in a way that was terrible. Like he came back a little different. and a little worse, but also a lot more entertaining, you know. And
Yeah,
so
has he like sort of
he's
lost his mind a little bit from the long
yeah,
imprisonment and being stabbed by the person he loves?
yeah. I wanted to make him just his marbles are a little bit loose, but he's still got like really good perspective, and
Hmm.
I think that's the most fun part about writing him is because he's so detached emotionally at this point that he can just look at everything and just be entertained by, the big show that's going on in
Hmm.
everyone's life. And he wants to play his part, and he does it in the worst ways in book two. But I knew I needed to get people to like him somewhat. I don't want him to be a villain, so that's why I had that the travel area in the swamp where it's just him and Sirilov.
Hmm.
And he's so sweet to her because, and it's genuine, he's not faking it. you know he likes her. She's a cool kid who's kind of talented and different, and she's a wrench in the gears that Axley has thrown into the system, and he loves all that. He's entertained by it. And so I wanted to have that before he became sort of an antagonist. He's not really
Hmm.
a villain. I love Ramus. He's not really a villain, but he
Hmm.
does cause the deaths of many people. um,
Then again, so does Axley. So
yeah, I mean, nobody's really more of a villain than Axley because I won't spoil book two, but book one, she does her fair share of destruction in
yeah,
Minilov
yeah.
and everywhere else that she goes.
Feel free at any point to just say like read and find out for any questions that will spoil too much of book two. I want to spoil the first book, not the second one. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, I guess that makes more sense, or that makes Ramus make more sense to me. Hearing you put it like that, because in some ways, it's like very subtle. A lot of the like character stuff that you've got going on is like real subtle. Like when Axley is first brought back to the Starlight company, and she's sort of like pretending that she's going along with it because she's planning this heist, and you don't really realize right away that she's planning on doing this. Like you kind of have to just pick up on the little hints. And Ramus to me felt like someone who almost was like scorned ex-boyfriend, and now he's back and he's like just kind of cool that his love has like moved on and is in love with someone else now.
Yeah, he takes it very well,
Mm-hmm.
and like I feel like there's one reviewer who I literally cackled reading it because she was talking about like how she was glad that he didn't get jealous and stuff, and I was like, that should be a sign of insanity, you know.
Yeah.
He's really a little bit too okay with like everything that's going on. He's completely emotionally detached from like the situation, which if you study psychopaths, which I've read some books on psychopaths and sociopaths, and like the different, the people who are kind of possibly born that way, or traumatized, and they experience that detachment,
Mm-hmm.
and they can still be completely normal, and you think that they're completely normal, but there's always the little hints. There's always little things. And so like him being detached was kind of like the big like tell that I was trying to give, that like he does not actually care that she's with someone new and that she stabbed him. He's actually totally okay with him literally killing him.
Yeah.
And that should be a sign.
Nah, he's just a normal dude, I think.
Yeah, totally normal. But
Now
but
that
he is
actually,
he is the most fun to write.
yeah, no, I could tell you have fun writing him, and I mean it comes through when so many people are saying that he's one of their favorite characters. That psychopath aspect actually kind of transitions into one of the questions I wanted to ask about. Um, what is it? Heart sight, and like when people get stains on their soul, like who
Oh yeah.
decides when they have the stain? Because it sort of feels like it's self-image in a way, but then it also sort of feels like there's like some higher power like controlling when it happens or something like that.
There's no higher power.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and spoil that for the entire series. There's no higher power in this world except maybe like the aliens. If the aliens are the higher power, but Axley
We'll get
is
to
an
the
alien.
aliens. Don't you wait.
So but but yeah, so the Heartseer, um, it's your intention, a malicious intention will create the stain. And like I was thinking, there are a bunch of studies now that show like if you are angry all the time, if you are stressed all the time versus if you're positive and hopeful, that has a physical effect on your body.
Mm-hmm.
It can actually destroy your cells or help with cell senescence. And so my thought with Heartseer was that this is just like the Spriggan eyes can see like a different kind of wavelength, kind of like scorpions will glow in the dark under an ultraviolet light. So they can see like this other light wavelength that allows them to see this damage that's being done to these people that have malicious intent.
Hmm.
And like that, manifests in that area. And, you know, so it's visible, but it's always malicious intent. So there's a character um, in book two who is probably the most evil person in the book, but she's got a pure aura because she really genuinely thinks that she's doing good for everyone in the whole world and that she is the world's savior. Um, so then, with somebody like King Henry, when you meet him, I wanted him to be, he's also an alien, just to spoil everything. Um, just he has this aura that's an even mix of both that can't be changed, like Rorik, and they're the only two characters that are like that.
Hmm.
And they've got that animal mindset where there is no malicious intent. There's also no good intent. They just do things.
Hmm.
And so Henry just does things. He doesn't think like, is this the right thing to do? That never crosses his mind ever. And you know but and Rorik also, he doesn't think about whether it's the right thing to do. He does things. So that's how
Yeah.
the auras work. It was really hard to explain that in the book in a natural way. Like I didn't want to have like one of those scenes where a character stops and has to explain all their abilities in detail and how they work to people. That
Mm-hmm.
always bothers me in books and I can never pay attention to it. So I just had to kind of like mention it randomly at like 10 different points throughout the story to try to give a little bit more detail each time, but I don't know how much actually made sense.
I mean, I feel like a lot of that came through. Um, yeah, this kind of ties into a comment Tom just said. He said it's always surprising what we think is obvious as the writers, and the readers just have no idea because they're just like caught up in the experience or whatever. And yeah, maybe some of that happened, but I feel like Heartsight is pretty well explained in the book without it being like, let's do a deep dive into psychology and malicious intention.
Yeah, I know I couldn't write about like the cellular senescence and the effects of stress and things like that. I did so much random research that like just like it all makes sense in my brain with how it connects to the gifts, but having to explain things in like medieval terms is always, why did I do all that research?
Yeah.
Like, like what was that for? I literally just said like, there's an aura and it glows. So,
And on the
yeah.
background, there's like 1,000 lines of code determining how the aura works.
Yeah. It's I always regret like I don't regret the research. Like I think the research is really fun, but I always like wonder like why did I even do that? What did I think I was going to be able to find that I could actually put into a medieval story? And I think I'm just kind of addicted to research. So I think that's the answer.
I think that's good though, because like a lot of that research, like you never really expect to just put it in wholesale. You like you're filtering through and trying to condense ideas and explain it in unique ways that work through the lens of your own characters. And I feel like you can't really do that if you haven't done the research. Like it's pretty obvious. It's just hollow at that point.
Yeah, definitely. Like the microchimerism, I actually was able to kind of squeeze that
Sorry,
in
wait,
in
say
a
that
couple.
again. Micro.
Microchimerism. So like
Okay.
when women are pregnant with a child,
Mhm.
some of that child's cells like get sucked up into the woman's body,
Mm.
and some of them get like stuck on her brain, and she grows like a little bit of her child's tissue in her own body
Hmm.
for like the rest of her life basically. And it has a lot of different effects. It can actually like improve your immune system and things like that. but the microchimerism was how I based creating the Watchers.
Hmm.
So, there's the Watchers and the Waiters, and so like the Waiter is in the mother's womb, and their cells with, all these gifts get, spread around this human woman's body. So like the heart fire and the um, brain. When you touch people, that one. Don't even know my own book. Um,
No,
the
I'm blanking on that now too. That's not a
yeah.
facer, right? You do have to touch
No,
someone for
it's
a
not a
facer, right?
facer. It's the other one. It's like the one that she uses the most often in the book. It starts with an I, and it's gone from my brain. But anyway, those two, the cells go through the body, and then the next time that woman gets pregnant after this child is born, um, Rourke is able to use those cells to manipulate the new fetus into becoming, having these different brain abilities
Hmm.
that are. And again, I don't want to spoil book 2, but I was able to kind of imply microchimerism in Starlight Jewel, which I was really excited about. Um,
Yeah,
but it was really difficult to find that opportunity.
there was a scene. I think it's a dream sequence where Axley is like seeing her mother and has something like growing inside her. That it's just making me think of that scene. And is that like
Yeah.
something that really happened in that dream sequence, or is that more like Axley's subconscious?
No, that's something that really happened. So one
Okay.
thing about the hybrid brains is that most of them, like if they have certain gifts, they don't dream, they just dream in their memories. So they only have that option of having memory dreams. And in this first book, Axley does actually kind of drift off of that, and she has like a very slight piece of an actual dream with King Henry in it,
Hmm.
saying things that he had never said, and that like freaks her out, and that's while she has like the leg infection.
Yeah. When
But the
she's
scene with her
rooting.
mother did actually happen,
Hmm.
and so since the microchimerism happened, and Hyde or Greg Jack got like a little bit of her heart fire, absorbed into him. She had this connection with him from like as soon as he was conceived. And so it just sort of drew her back, and like she was aware that something was going on that was not quite normal. And then she, started trying to research it in the Ashite libraries and trying to find all these old Ashite texts, but she found out too late. And yeah.
Hmm. The Ashites. They're they're an interesting group in this. There's definitely like so much going on behind the scenes and like so much scheming and plotting with them. I I feel like it's all still like yet to be revealed, like what's really going on here.
Yeah. It was when I was doing beta readers, like the book kept spitting people out saying like, "What are the Ashites even here for?" And I don't know who they are. And so I'm not sure the final product even like, kind of conveys what they're going to be in the plot or like who they're, but they were the people who used to live in this area of Norge, and then the Norgans destroyed them because they were assholes. And
And they did that with
um,
like heart or with watchers and waiters and stuff, right?
well, no, yeah, they were being assholes with Watchers and Waiters. They
Okay,
were
yeah.
like, or being jerks. They were like going and killing people and then making people forget that they were dead.
Hmm.
And then, so the Norgans realized, these are the only people who could possibly be doing that, because they weren't, they did it too much. If they'd only done it a couple times, you could chalk it up to, well, maybe somebody's just not confessing to murder. But if you murder enough people and enough people forget, you're
Yeah.
gonna find out.
People are gonna be like,
So the
something's going on here.
yes, so the Norgans came and killed them, and then it's been like a few hundred years since that happened when like the story of Axley starts, but there's still Norgans around even though they were defeated. There's Friolov and her dad Troy, and there's other people, and there's actually just a slight spoiler for book 2. there's there's an Ashite in the Starlight Company who like they don't know this person is
Oh,
an Ashite,
not free
and
love.
not Freelov. Yeah.
Hmm.
So there's somebody else who's they've been doing a lot of things behind the scenes, and I planted like so many seeds. There's so many seeds. I'm so excited for people to like, see what I've done, with all this. But
Yeah, high rereadability in the series. That's great.
it's really just so fun to do foreshadowing. Like I get so excited just like putting little things in and being like, ha ha ha, they're gonna love this person, and then they're gonna realize. And so the Ashites definitely play a bigger role in book two, um, just because they're gonna be around. They're gonna be more around than they were in book one.
Are they from
So
Van Couth, or is that a totally separate thing?
no, that's a totally separate thing. So
Okay.
yeah, that was really complicated trying to explain that Axley's mom was from Van Couth, got kidnapped by an Ashite, and then they moved to Norwich, and then she was raised by the Starlight Company, and raised by her kidnappers, and her kidnappers became like her dad and her sister, and yeah. So I don't. In my head, it seemed really clear and simple when I was writing. I was like, yeah, of course that makes sense. Baby got kidnapped. She got taken over here. Like everything's cool. Trying to explain that in a book in a way that like doesn't overwhelm people is a little bit harder than I expected.
Yeah.
And my
Plus,
first draft, I
Axley
just
doesn't
didn't
know
even
that stuff,
explain it.
right?
Yeah, she doesn't know that her mother is from Van Couth for sure. She doesn't like she knows that she looks kind of like the people from Van Couth. Like she's seen Van Couthian people, and she's like, yeah, I could be there. Like that could be me. But she isn't sure about that, and she knows that like her Friolov kidnapped her mother. Like so she's like vaguely aware of all that stuff, but she wasn't when she was a child. She figured it out as she got older, and then I had to reveal it in ways in the book that were kind of not overwhelming. But I still feel like people probably come out of the book having no idea what her family tree is.
I mean, it's a complicated one, so I mean, you don't necessarily need that stuff to enjoy the book, though, as long as it all makes sense to
Yeah,
you
for
in
sure.
the background.
You don't need it at all. Like I think I made a post the other day like that was making fun of like all the complicated things and who has what gifts and like the half siblings having like the last name endings. You don't need to know any of that. Like you might get some fun treats if you like learn the naming system and all the gifts, but really overall you can just read the book and be clueless and you'll still know what's going on.
Yeah. So the naming system, like, I'm thinking of like Friolov and Cyrilov, and there's like all of that is tied to the moon. Is that right?
Yeah, for their names, Menelov, Friolov, and Cyrilov
Minilov
are
too,
like
yeah.
yeah, the whole moon. So those are Ashite words. So like those three names are like the only ones: the full moon, the new moon, and like everything in between moon for Cyrilov. And so that is like a plot hint for the whole series. I don't want to ruin that, but but for the other names, the hybrid names, the endings of the names are given based off who the Spriggan mother is. So there's like Seville and Camille and Valerie and Jory, and there actually were a ton more Spriggan parents and Spriggan names, and I realized that was going to get really complicated.
Your
And so
characters are already
reduced.
innumerable enough.
They were already innumerable, so I cut it down to like I think like 8 Spriggan parents, and I only used the names from those. But yeah, so it's not important though. You don't need it, but
It's nice
and
Easter
it'll
egg stuff.
yeah it'll remind you like when it is important. So in book 2, it does become important. You find one of Ramus's brothers becomes a plot point, but I make sure to say, hey, this is Ramus's half brother. So.
Okay. So it's all communicated clearly.
Yeah.
Just taking a look at chat over here. Ed says Heartseer is a perfect example of show don't tell in action. I think that's true. Bo Kelly is here. Hey Bo, good to see you.
Hey Bo.
And then Tom said something. That's the other side of the blade with those things as the author we think are obvious.
Yeah, I definitely thought a lot was obvious until I started doing the beta reading and realized that I had explained literally nothing. Just
Oh,
nothing. It was
that's why beta
like
readers are
if people are
important.
lost now, it was so bad. It's definitely unreadable, and I'm still really thankful that people like bore with me for that whole process because it did take me, like 2 years to make the book into something that you actually could understand what's going on for most of the time.
Yeah, I feel like
But
I, everything was like, well, okay. Now I'm about to say everything was clear to me. I fully got it, but I think it's pretty clear. Some things have definitely gone over my head. I misinterpreted certain things, I'm sure. Actually, I did want to ask you about one thing in the plot that I didn't really quite understand, and that was during the rescue sequence in the middle.
oh
I feel like I
yeah.
was sort of on board with like the plot, or like Axley's plan. She's like going to the guards and like telling them like these places are going to be hit by the Starlight Company, and then the Starlight Company, she goes to them and is like, these are Ashites here, but they're not really all Ashites. She's basically just like pitting these factions against each other, right? But
Yeah.
what I didn't understand was how did she know where Ramus and Frialov were being held?
So when she's still back in Tarth, she's talking
Mm-hmm.
to Greg about what he's seen in the glass, and she's taking down descriptions of the room and giving him her extra senses. So it was kind of like a scene
Mm.
that I really skipped over most of it just because it was going to be boring. It was going to be like her like being like touching him. Impartation. That's the gift that I blanked on earlier.
Okay.
Impartation. So it's her like touching him and giving him her gifts so that he can see better in this cell and figure out where exactly it is. So she gets
Mm.
all the information and data she needs on where Ramus and Frelov are before she goes back home. But yeah, I just kind of skipped it, which is basically why everyone complains about the book. Is because I just kind of skipped it is like my reason for a lot of things.
All right. It, it was definitely not like a big complaint for me. It was just like something that I was like, wait a sec. I feel
Yeah,
like
that
she
got like
didn't know.
2 sentences. I was like, they stayed up all night talking about the dungeon, and then
Okay.
and then I moved on, and then it was over.
I guess I just missed like the significance of those lines.
I mean, given everything else that was going on, like she like hits her little brother like he's like a child, and then like she has the fight with um Grandpa Uther, and then like rides off into the distance, and I think she has. I don't know if I kept in the conversation with Katerina. Um, but yeah, it was definitely a tumultuous time where like that seemed like the smallest, least important detail, and I just didn't include it. There were a lot of things that got cut as well. Like the time in Tarth was probably 3 times as long. Like there
Mm.
was a lot of time in the first draft where they were just chilling, like living life in Tarth, and
Nice
yeah, that didn't
slice of
make it.
life fantasy.
Yeah, wanted to get everybody really cozy with these people before destroying everything. So
Well, I mean the feels definitely hit at the end, which is always a good sign for me that I actually care about the characters and everything. Um, I just need to know, why is it that we can't have a single wedding in a fantasy book be like a happy event?
oh yeah. Yeah,
you
I
you
I
got to go
I
with the
told
trend.
everyone. I just want to say that I've warned everyone. The chapter title is Happily Ever.
Oh yeah, it doesn't end with
And
after. It's like interrupted.
yeah, it's interrupted. Like there's no happy ending. And nobody ever gets their memories back. But I think it's a little bit better than like the Red Wedding from Game of Thrones. It's not that bad.
Yeah,
Only a
only a
couple
couple
people
people
die.
died.
Yeah. Only one person gets kidnapped, and only one person loses his memory and basically falls out of love.
Basically the most
It's not that bad.
important person in the book to lose their memory. And not only did,
Yeah,
I guess the way a facer works is like, not only does he lose his memory, but everybody who knows actually through him, like friends of friends
yeah, like
situations, also loses their memory.
he's the epicenter. So
Mm.
everyone that she met during that time that he was the epicenter, like since they met, got their memory stolen as well of Axley. So it might be just like a couple memories for one person. But I will note that there is a distance factor that's mentioned in the beginning of the book. So the reason the Spriggans collect all these jewels and pay for things with jewels is because it amplifies the Epheser and impartation abilities and, extends them to further distances.
Mm.
There's not a lot of jewels in Tarth, so Epheser did not reach as far as it might have if they had been in Minilov. So it was only the people in like that surrounding area that Camille could efface.
Hmm.
And that does come into play in book 2. But that was very fun to write, just screwing everybody over.
Yeah.
And Henry, I think, was the star of those chapters. Like, I know it was about Axley and Graham losing their memories, but I didn't really care about them when I was writing it.
You're like full King Henry mode at that point.
I know, I just love dropping all the little hints and just having him like be completely in control of the situation and just being like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to forget everything. I'm sure I'll figure it out,
Yeah.
like then he gets sabotaged by Alvena, and she's gonna come back for a small role in book 2 as
And
well. Like
that was the shoes, right? What Alvena did to sabotage him.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like he had like chosen shoes he would recognize, and she decided to not send those shoes.
So did Alvena sort of also know that this was going to happen in some way?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So Alvena is a part of the church, and see what I can say that's not a spoiler for book 2. So at the end of book 1, it's kind of hinted that Greg's dreams might be a little bit prophetic.
Yes.
And Axley can't dream. So just hold those 2 pieces of information. Like she struggles to dream outside of memory. And so just hold those 2 pieces of information in your brain for book 2.
Okay.
And that will give you your answers for why Alvena is like, kind of a little bit more aware of what's going on in Tarth than even Henry is, and can get ahead of him because he is incredibly smart and can put things together really well, but he can't see the future. So
yeah, there's so much stuff hinted at the end of the books. So like in some way I feel like your plot structure is very like unusual, I guess. It almost feels like 3 or 4 novellas like put together and made cohesive and everything. And
yeah.
that the last novella I feel like does so much work to set up the like the next book. There's the Van Cooth
really
stuff,
does.
all of the King Henry stuff. Like there's like I don't know what you can say about King Henry. Like it definitely feels like he's in control, but also sort of not in control. There's like scheming and more scheming behind the scenes. It's crazy.
Yeah, Henry is also, he's up there with Ramus and like my favorite characters to write just because they're troublemakers. I love writing troublemakers, and but this whole first book kind of almost feels like an introduction to the second book because I had to set up so many pieces, and now I'm finally getting to like make them do what they were meant to. Like, everybody gets to like play their final role in the second book. So it's exciting to be able to set up everything. But then, I couldn't have split the book, because if I had split the book, people would have read that first section, like the first little mini novella, and thought that I was literally just writing a Cinderella story.
Yeah.
And it's really not, like my idea to ruin Cinderella clearly got out of hand by quite a bit.
I liked it, and I feel like I've seen a lot of reviews that say they really liked the Cinderella stuff. There's that one thread that you were posting about. I think Britt was posting on Twitter.
Oh yeah. Oh my
and
god.
she was like, "Oh my god, so he's gonna put the slipper on her foot, isn't she?" I was like, I just read that part.
Like it was my least favorite Disney movie as a kid. Like I hated Cinderella so much, and this is just my revenge against Cinderella, is to make it, for one, actually make sense in some way. Like the whole thing just didn't even make any sense the way Disney did it, and then also to make it, to just ruin every part of it. Like Cinderella being a prostitute assassin who, literally does nothing good ever. Like she's, not the innocent, maid cleaning up the fireplace, but she's still, Cinderella in her own way. She's at the ball.
Yeah. They do their dancing. I thought that he was gonna have the like wrist brace as like the the Cinderella piece.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
But
trying on the wrist brace, but she still kind of needs that. So,
yeah.
at, so you got the shoe, but it was really fun, kind of trying to tie that glass into the magic system as well,
Yeah.
like with the Watcher element. And I don't actually remember thinking that up. Like it was one of those things where I was just like writing Hyde Greg Jack, whatever his name is, and it just sort of like I need him to be really dangerous. What can I do to make him incredibly dangerous? And I need something that's not going to be obvious when he's like sitting on this, like, in this alley. He's got to be able to do something. And it just came to me that like broken glass is going to look like really inconspicuous. For one, he can pull that out anywhere and people will just think he's a weird kid because he is a weird kid. And he can use that and look into it, and it's not flashy, nothing is happening. He's not like making like magic come out of it. But it's still a powerful enough gift, especially when you combine it with the impartation and the efficer to, be like world ending if he's in the right hands.
Hmm.
It was fun to come up with, but I don't actually remember like where I got that idea. Like I knew I was gonna have glass. It's gonna
Hmm.
be a lot of glass. So
Just one of those like happy accidents. You just get an idea while you're writing. You're like, oh, yeah, this is great.
yeah,
Keep
and
going
then
with
that got
this.
tied into like the Ashite culture,
Yeah.
and yeah, so it's still in book two. I'm still getting like new glass ideas that were like not in the original plot outline.
You got to talk to John Morrow because he makes glass for
Oh
a
my
living,
goodness.
doesn't
Yeah, I've been reading everything on the Lyons glass possible. That is just so cool. It's for those who have not read all of John Morrow's like recent stuff and watched all the YouTube videos. He's a professor and and a book reviewer. That too. But the professor stuff he's doing is actually much cooler than the book reviews. Made a specific type of glass that has like a higher cracking point, so it doesn't break nearly as easily as regular glass. But also, it requires a much lower heat to make it into glass.
it? Hmm.
So I'm trying to remember. I think it was like there's a ridiculous heat you need to turn like um, sand and crap sand and stuff into glass. Sand and heat. You need something else to put in there that's in some sands in like Egypt. Like they don't actually need to add anything because it's already there, but it's
Hmm.
like a catalyst for it turning into sand. So usually you need those two ingredients, and then you need this ridiculously high heat that has like large CO2 emissions. So this does require a lot less heat, and it also doesn't break as easy, so you don't need as much new glass. Anyway, it's really cool glass.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of chemistry that goes into it. They're not making it with like the same materials, and they can make different. I'm really interested for when like he releases more stuff about it. Like I know that they're still working on it, and they've still got like one of their patents is still pending.
Hmm. It's not like
But
a commercial product yet. It's more like a research
yeah,
thing.
and it's also not something you can make in your backyard because I did look that up. Um,
I
you
could
can
definitely see you trying to do that if that was possible.
you can make real glass in your or regular glass in your backyard. You can find the ingredients and make some really crappy glass in your backyard. But this Lyons glass, there is some chemicals, and I'm blanking on what they're called right now, that are a little bit more dangerous.
Hmm.
I think like you might be able to make it in your backyard, but I'm not going to recommend
You
it
just
because I
can't get
feel
all this
like
stuff on Amazon.
white phosphorus or something.
Yeah.
And you know I don't think you should make it in your backyard. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
I
our
was able
legal
to
disclaimer.
find
Don't try this at home.
I was able to find some of this stuff on eBay, and I was like staring at it like really don't think this is
It's like,
something
should
I
we do
should
this?
look into.
Mhm. Oh,
But
that's funny.
especially here in the city, like I do want to set up, since I've been doing all the research for glass for the books. I wanted to make my own little glass forge, but we live so close to neighbors. I feel like someone would definitely call the cops on me if they
Yeah.
saw me building like a glass kiln in my backyard. So I'm just gonna have to wait till I move.
Move into the country. or you can make whatever glass you want.
That's my plan. I'm gonna move to the country, get ducks, and like do weird stuff in my backyard that I can't do here.
That sounds fantastic. All right, so Tom Mock was saying, so you've talked about some of the characters you've loved writing, like Ramos and King Henry, but what characters were your least favorite to write or most difficult to write?
Oh, man. I'm gonna start with saying that I loved writing all of them. Like, I love my characters. They're so much fun, and I got really attached to them over the course of writing the books. That I guess Axley was my least favorite to write. Um, she's kind of a jerk. And, even though she's like really fun in a lot of ways, she's also got the most baggage.
Mm-hmm.
She's the most intense character to write, so I would never really describe writing her as fun because she's kind of miserable. Like she's kind of like just depressed. She's not really depressed. Like I've definitely read more depressed characters, but she's more fun sometimes than others. Like when she's not caring about people, she's a little bit more fun to write just because she's just willing to do anything, and that like takes the restraints off as a writer versus like when she is like having these moral dilemmas or she's feeling guilty. It's the parts where she's a better character. She is less fun to write when she is like a better person. And I think I generally find that true about characters just because when people are being their best selves, they have all that guilt and stuff. Guilt isn't fun,
Yeah,
So
it's not what we want to read
they're
about.
A little bit, and it's not like I could make her completely good,
Mm-hmm.
She's got to have that guilt to be Axley. So she was the least fun to write, for sure.
I can see that. Yeah, she's got a lot of moral conundrums. How did you like approach balancing like making her sympathetic enough and likable enough while still making sure she's got some baggage and she's not a good person? Like it could easily have been like, we just don't like Axley.
Yeah, I did have to change some things from the first draft. Like I've talked about before, she killed horses in the first draft, and all the beta readers came together and were just like, no. And like there was even a beta reader who had never commented on my story. Like I had it posted on a website, never commented on my story before, and just randomly in the middle of this chapter, she comes in and she's like, "You can't kill horses in a book with your main character." I was like, where did you even come from? And like, so literally everyone came together to tell me that Axley could not do that. She would no longer be sympathetic. So I had to take that part out. And there were a couple other parts where people told me, she needs to have better motivations, or you need to be clearer about her motivations here, to kind of soften the blow. And so I just kind of had to rewrite certain sections. So nothing actually changed about her. She was still a bad person, but like it was clear to the reader why she made that terrible decision. And honestly, I don't know why people like her, because she is terrible, but she is also kind of fun. She's a little bit feral and generally unhinged.
Yeah.
While also like she has the ability to like fit in, and she's kind of eloquent. She's more eloquent than me. I think that's it was really hard to write her as a character that could put together all these things and make different connections when I actually cannot put together two things in my brain at home. Like some of the dialogue took me literally months to get right. So I think they like that she's kind of an intelligent main character. A lot of times the character flaws, or at least for me when I'm reading a book, if there's a stupid main character, it drives me insane. Just like if the character flaw is that they're angry, but they're so angry that it makes them stupid, I can't deal with that. Like I need them to be angry and intelligent, especially if it's a woman. I feel like kind of personally insulted whenever there's a female main character who's so angry that she cannot think. Even though I'm not like super intelligent myself, like at least I'm not that, Like, don't insult me by saying I'm that stupid.
No. Hey, you wrote a book, a very good book, so you can't be that dumb.
my day-to-day life is filled with a lot of, every time I walk into the laundry room, I forget what I'm doing, and like I have a little bit of trouble with just like remembering things and making connections. But I didn't want to give that flaw to Axley. I wanted her to actually be like fun and smart and devious and do all the things that I'm not capable of as someone with bad ADHD. But
No, I think I
so
think that makes sense. Like, we definitely like, or okay, I definitely like Axley just because of how competent she is. There's also one line that I actually noted down, if I can quickly find it, because it's in my notes here. Uh, when I think it's like near the middle of the book, and it's when I think it's during the heist, not the heist stuff, the rescue stuff, when she's like, "I'm Axley, the Starlight Jewel of Minilov. Every inch of this city is mine." And I'm like, all right, she's like kind of scary, but I'm kind of loving this. Like, she just feels like she's so in control.
yeah, she definitely. I wanted to make her sort of like grow into like her role as like she wants to take over almost, and like she's definitely resisting it at first and kind of trying to play that line of like I just want to do my job in the beginning, and then as she gets like more angry and angry as the book goes on because more things are like leaving her control, she just kind of turns into a monster. And
And
but
like
yeah,
you
she is
said,
very confident. I think I try to do my best to give her obstacles that I didn't know how to get her through. So that
mm,
when I was writing, I really had to, and like that's something like I do with all my fight scenes. Like I write a fight scene in such a way that they are going to die and there's no way out of it. And then I just sit there for like 2 weeks and think of how they can get out of it. So it
that's
has to
great.
be something that I could not think of in that amount of time. So if anyone wants to know how to make a character smarter than themselves, get them into something that you couldn't get out of, and then
And then
spend
think for
all
a
your
long
time
time.
getting them out of it.
Yeah. I mean, that makes
Unless they
sense.
can't, and then they might accidentally actually die in the book.
Which sometimes that happens.
It does.
Yeah, that reminds me of when George R. R. Martin's asked about like writing Tyrion, and Tyrion's like this smart, witty character, and George R. R. Martin's like, well, the thing is, I have like months to come up with his smart lines. I don't have to think of them on the spot. It's like the same
Yeah,
idea here.
definitely. I feel like people like would not expect or would expect me to be able to like, flirt like Axley does and make plans like Axley does. And like literally that one flirting scene, the one time in the book where she flirts took me months. It took me so long. And I was just like, it works, and I'm not going to do that again ever. She's just not going to do that again the rest of the book.
Yeah, different problems. But I do like that that whole just method of putting characters in situations that you don't yet know the solution of, because then you like force the character to basically level up rather than just like dumbing down the problem and getting them past it for plot convenience.
Yeah, exactly. Like if I was in one of those, they do it for fun now. They put you in a room and you have to try and get out. I forget what they're called.
Like an escape
But
room.
yeah, I would die. Like I would be so panicked that I couldn't get out of the escape room.
Have you
So it
ever done one
definitely
before?
helps. I have not. I'm not going to. I being
Well,
locked in a
after
room
2 hours,
sounds
they
not
have to let you
ideal.
out. So.
I would get hungry within that 2 hours. Maybe if I could bring snacks.
You probably could to some of them.
But but yeah, so making the characters like smarter and faster is you know takes months. Like
Hmm.
it really takes such a long time to get everything to work right and be right. And before I forget, I did actually get a question on one of my posts on whether or not the hybrids can eat meat. So in the book,
Hmm.
the hybrids can't eat things with salt and vinegar, but they eat meat when they're in Minilov. And first off, it is possible to cook meat without salt. Just it's not very good.
Yeah.
It's bad. So the meat in Minilov is not going to be the tastiest meat around, but you can counter that by using something sugary. So
Hmm.
the lack of saltiness is okay if you have something like syrup or honey to, make it taste like something other than saltless meat. Um, so the meat in Minilov is edible to the hybrids, but the meat up north, once she goes to Tarth, she has to kind of avoid all like the jerky they're handing her and stuff because
It's
it's
all salted.
salted. But also, meat does have salt in it naturally, and so do vegetables and so do fruits. Everything has salt in it naturally. And like, so I live on the coast at the swamp, and the dirt has tons of salt in it, tons, because we're by the ocean. And so everywhere, though, dirt has salt in it, and plants actually need a little bit of salt to survive.
Hmm.
Like they need trace amounts of salt, and some plants need more salt than others. Like beetroots, I think beetroots need more salt than your average plant. So it's not deadly for the hybrids to have some salt. You can't go.
Mm.
There is no living thing on Earth that isn't able to handle some salt. It's
It's more
just
like a dosage thing.
larger. Yeah, like
Okay.
once you get a larger dose of salt on a plant, it'll kill them. When you ice the roads or when you salt the roads after an ice storm, it gets it kills all the plants on the side. Like
Hmm.
when the sorry, I hit the mic.
That's okay.
um, you the cars spray all the salt onto
Hmm.
the surrounding grass and it all dies. And whenever fertilizer and pesticides break down, they basically turn into salt. A lot of stuff that you don't expect turns into salt, and it all we're literally killing our plants all the time by over salting them. um, just because of the way we live and how many things we put outside to help, instead of just not driving, we salt the roads
Yeah.
and we kill everything on the side of the roads. So,
But for our convenience.
yeah, so that we can
Most
drive in the
important
snow
thing.
and get into. I watch all those horrible, like on Instagram, it's always showing me where like one car will slide down the road and then it'll hit the other car, and then
Oh yeah.
there's like 20 cars at the bottom of this hill. Like, just stay home.
Yeah. It's not safe to drive in the snow.
Yeah.
um, oh, I totally blanked again. But I was gonna ask. Speaking of salt and everything, um, it seems like I guess this isn't really related to salt, but the whole idea of them going like over bodies of water, and then that makes them sort of it seems almost like frostbite type stuff going on. What is that called in the book? Just
Separation sickness.
yeah, that's right. Um, yeah, I'm just very fascinated like how that works. It sort of makes sense conceptually, like they need to be sort of rooted to the ground, but I'm curious
Hmm.
about the system behind it.
So if you've ever like taken a plant out of the dirt and then just like kind of like left it hanging, so when you like dry onions and things like that,
Mhm.
the roots shrivel. They know like the moisture all like comes into the center of like the body of that plant, and the roots shrivel and eventually they die, and dry out completely. So I was thinking it would be neat, and I also don't remember thinking of this, but somewhere along in the, you know, creating the Spriggans and hybrids, I was like, how would they live without being on land? And so it is sort of one of the more high magic points of the
Mhm.
book, is that they have to be sort of grounded because they've got shoes. I didn't want to have them be like barefoot hippies. So they do have shoes on, so it's not like they're actually touching the ground. But
Mhm.
and then there's also been some research on grounding, which I don't know how I feel about this research on grounding, but I did look into it when I was looking into the book. Like if you a regular human, not a hybrid from my fictional story, goes outside and puts your feet on the ground, it's supposed to give you a lot of health benefits and things like that. So I was thinking maybe that would be amplified for plants. I'm not sure, or they're not sure. Scientists are not sure exactly what the cause. It does have some like mental and physical benefits, but it could just be that like it feels nice to have dirt on your feet. You
Yeah,
know,
it's like mostly a
they don't
mental thing.
actually know if it's like an actual physical phenomenon or not. So that one is a little bit of a stretch as far as the research goes. Um, but I thought it would make more sense, and it would, in like a fantasy setting, it would
Mhm.
make more sense. And also they were a little bit too overpowered. They could do too much. even though the abilities each have their drawbacks, I did kind of make like a lot of gifts, and I don't know why I did that. Um, you know, you look back and you question like your former self, like why did you like give them so much stuff? And
You're like, you have to
and
work with this throughout the whole trilogy now.
yes, like you got all this stuff and you put it in the grocery cart, and now I have to put it all away and cook it
Yeah.
all, and that sucks. Thank you, former self. But yeah, so it was a lot of gifts, and I felt like they needed something else that they just couldn't do.
Hmm.
And as it turned out, that is like the biggest plot ruiner ever. For
They
things,
can't go straight from Norge to Tarth. They got to go all the way around.
yeah, getting yourself into areas that you can't get out of, like in book two, it would have been like really easy to move the plot forward if they could just go to Vancouver.
Mm. Oh yeah, they
And
can't get there.
yeah, no one can go to Vancouver. So, yeah. So that definitely made for a big plot obstacle for me, and the characters, but mostly for me.
Well, Ed said slow-mo intelligence is still intelligence, so you just gotta think of it over a couple months. And then he also stole my joke. I was gonna say Starlight or Spriggans literally have to touch grass to survive.
Yes.
Tom Mock
Literally
says
have to touch grass.
electrolytes. It's what plants crave. So yeah, that's the separation sickness. They're not getting enough electrolytes.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. They need a little bit of sodium. They need to touch the ground. But it was kind of fun making them plant-like, but also human-like, and trying to figure out like where to strike that balance, and giving them their weaknesses. Sometimes I just read books and I'm like, these people are too much.
Yeah, they're
They've got,
flawless. They got nothing.
yes, like, especially elf stories. Like elves always have abilities, but they never have like the bad thing about the elf, like whatever, like maybe they're like extra slow because they've got short legs or something.
Yeah,
You know,
like even Superman has kryptonite. You need something.
yeah, and like all these elf stories, it's like the elves just have these abilities and they have like no detracting point. Like there's nothing bad about being an elf. Like it's just wonderful to be an elf apparently, and I hate that. I want there to be something bad. I want my characters to be miserable.
You're
So
not writing any elf utopia stories.
no, definitely not. I've considered writing a redneck fairy story. It haunts me every once in a while. Every time I see somebody writing something Appalachian, I'm like, you know what? I could do better. I could write better Appalachian fantasy where like there's a like redneck fairy who's got a shotgun, and I've got Tammy Lynn. She's got her magic, but like a full epic trilogy of just redneck fairies, I feel like would be pretty exciting for me to write.
Yeah, there's
But
your
that's
next
the only
idea.
fairy story I've ever considered writing.
Um, yeah, I think I've never seen a redneck fairy story, so you have a wide open market to just steal 100% of that readership.
Yeah,
We'll be good
pretty
to go.
much.
Um, yeah, I wanted to ask about the end of the book. So,
Oh.
um, so the book ends with Axley becoming the Austringer, killing Tarly, and
Hmm.
it sort of seems like she didn't really plan on doing that on the way into the fight. Is that
Yeah.
is that accurate?
Yeah, she did not plan on becoming the Ostringer. It was definitely just bad circumstances. She was hoping that Jory would do it, but Jory was a
Hmm.
little late to the fight, and then he got held up. And then she was hoping to get Ramus out so he could do it.
He got like pinned to
And
the table, or no,
he was
that was
already
someone else.
chained
Yeah,
up, and she was able to get one of
yeah,
his
yeah, yeah.
arms free, but not the other arm free. And so he just wasn't able to finish Tarly off, and Tarly was going to finish him off. So like the only way she could save Ramus was to kill Tarly, and so she couldn't have killed him on her own. She knew that, like that was, never in her plans, and also she just didn't want to be Ostringer, and it wasn't in her brain that she could be Ostringer because it
Hmm.
was like always like duels that had chosen the new Ostringers in the past, and women are not going to win a sword fight against men who are also just as well trained. Like both are just as well trained, the woman's not gonna win. You know, even Axley with all her smarts can only do so much, and she's also not even the best of the women as far as sword fighting goes, because the Lowbirds and the Nameless all have more training than her. So like Baj is like a better swords person than her. My Sleeping Beauty, I know.
Baj.
Yeah, taking more fairy tales to ruin.
I didn't pick up on that one. I picked up the Cinderella one. That one was clear, but Sleeping Beauty too.
You didn't pick up on it in the glass coffin?
No, I did not. I'm not as familiar with Sleeping Beauty though, so maybe that's just on me.
That's okay. I'm sure some people got it. You know, nobody ever brings it up in the reviews, but I don't know if that's because they don't want to spoil it.
Yeah.
Or if they don't notice. But
late story
I am
stuff.
getting some really cool art done for book 2 of her in the glass coffin. Charlotte Hussey has sent me like all the progress sketches. I'm so excited about it. It looks amazing. But yeah, so Axley just isn't a good enough swords person, because she's had to focus so much on going to these balls and learning to dance and do all sorts of other stuff that has nothing to do with swords.
The more like seductress thieving aspect of things rather than the muscle.
Yeah. And then the sword that she picks up is too big for her anyway, so she's just screwed all around. But, you know, jumping on somebody's back and stabbing them in the neck and the eye, like, I think is something she can handle. And then getting crushed under him when he falls.
Like, that whole fight, it felt very high stakes, because you did spend a lot of time, like, hyping up Baj and, like, how talented she is, and, like, Axley's never won a duel against her, and then all of a sudden Baj is there. I'm like, okay. It's like, she could die here.
In the original first draft, Baj actually died. She didn't become my Sleeping Beauty, laying in wait, you know, to be woken up so she can try and kill Axley again. And it was, I made it just like the saddest possible ending I could with Baj dying. But then I didn't feel like she'd had her moment yet, you know? Like, I felt like Baj could do more. You know, Baj did not have a big enough villain moment in book 1. You know, she, you know, has her little crazy moment and she has a good fight, but I feel like she could do so much more and, like, get so much closer to killing Axley, and maybe even kill Axley. Who knows? I might get really tired of writing her.
Your least favorite character. Just kill her off. There's the easy solution.
Yeah. I don't think I will kill her, because all of my beta readers across the board have said, please don't do that. And I do feel like I would lose a lot of readers if I did that. But still, it's tempting.
Yeah, but if it's like third book, sorry, they're already committed. They're not going to put the series down.
Just all 1 stars at the end of on the last book in the series.
It was great until the end and totally flopped. So like Axley didn't know she was going to become Austringer, and like that wasn't part of her plan ever in the book. I'm curious how early you made the decision to make her Austringer in the end. Was that something that just sort of emerged as like, how is she going to get out of this situation, or was this more of a plan from the beginning?
Well, so I did the test drafts where I just like wrote a few scenes, and that was before I started the actual first draft, but then I did the outline in between those. And I had, I don't know, at least 10 different endings picked out.
That's a lot.
all sort of had the same vibes, like Axley's life sucks. That's what I wanted for the end, and all 10 of these were like different ways that Axley's life could suck. and so the first draft didn't have that ending at all. Trying to remember which one was the first draft and which one was the second draft. But there was one draft where she was in Tarth when it ended. It ended at a battle in Tarth.
Okay.
And then another draft where pretty much everybody died in Menelov. But and she did not become the Austringer, but everybody died. Like Jory died, and Baj died.
It's like the Quentin Tarantino ending. Everybody just big bloodbath at the end.
Yeah, and then I like just decided against both of those. Having it end in Tarth would have been really convenient, because I wouldn't have had to have that last like travel back to Menelov for like the 3rd time with the time skips, and then, but it wasn't impactful enough like for Axley, to have things in there. I think having it end back, you know, where it started, where she's got all these connections, and also where she's the most miserable was better. So I just decided on that. But that was like the third draft when I finally started working with people. Um, I had already sent them a few chapters, and then as I was editing ahead of sending it to them, and changed it to that ending before I sent it to my beta readers.
Hmm. And then did you have to like thread some like foreshadowing in the next draft?
No, actually, I didn't
Oh, really?
foreshadow her becoming Ostringer at all. Yeah, I foreshadowed like the entire second book and like so many other
But not the
things,
ending of
but
the first.
not the ending of the first book. You know, I think by that point I was kind of tired.
Well,
Um,
I thought there was some foreshadowing in there. Maybe I'm just like making stuff up, but the
well,
like maybe the
mhm.
fact that the second book, by the time I had read it, or by the time I was reading Starlight Jewel, you'd already announced the name of the second book. So early on, I was like, who's the Austringer gonna be? Like, I think I was like chapter 9. I'm like, Tarly seems kind of like a bad guy here. Like, I could see him being the Austringer whose wrath like actually inflames or something. And by the end of the book, I was like, oh, okay, it's gonna be Jory. Like, he's gonna be the Austringer for book 2, and there's gonna be lots of conflict there. And then all of a sudden, Axley, I was like, whoa, I didn't see that coming, but I like this.
Yeah, it definitely it was unexpected and for me too. And
Yeah.
once I got into book two, it made the plot happen so much better. Like there's been so many fun things that I wouldn't have been able to do if I had kept the original one of the original two endings. Especially with Ramus and Jory. Like if there had been that power discrepancy between Ramus and Jory, we would have gone into book two, you know, kind of with that conflict being unbalanced straight away. But right now they're both in the same position and they're both like polar opposites. Like you've got like all morals and, you know, duty, and you know he's all about the hybrids, and then there's Ramus who just like doesn't even care at all and just wants to have fun. And and so, you know, they're both like her seconds as the book starts, and so it was kind of a fun way to be able to go into it that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And so I did think about that as I was thinking which ending I wanted to have, was that would set up the best for Axley to just, you know, be miserable, and the rest of the characters to be in a position to be the most usable, I guess,
Hmm.
for the plot.
Yeah, makes sense. I do like that you knew from the beginning we're gonna end with Axley just being miserable. Like,
Absolutely. Yeah, I just I don't know, I'm not a big fan of happy endings. You know, I like everything to go to crap by the end of the book.
yeah, I mean, you gotta escalate somehow for the second book. You can't just like have it all nice and resolved and they're living their peaceful life and then oh, there's another conflict. I mean, I guess you
Yeah.
could do that, but I like it when it's
Yeah.
like constantly building up the tension throughout the series. Like, that works better for
By
me.
book three, there will definitely be resolution. I want a lot of resolution, but
Hmm.
it would be nice if I could make it just a little bit miserable at the end, just for me.
Yeah, I think bittersweet endings are kind of my favorite too. It sounds like that's more like your style.
Yeah, for sure. Like when everything is just fine and there's no big sacrifice at the end. You know, I want them to work for like their happy ending. Like I want them to have to give something up. I don't want it to just be easy. I don't like happy endings that are easy, because when it's easy and you don't actually have to lose anything, then it doesn't feel satisfying to me. Whereas in a book, if they really have to work hard for it and give up a lot that means a lot, you know, it has to be a meaningful sacrifice, then it does feel a lot better to me when I'm reading. Because sometimes the book will end and I'm just like, okay, it's over.
Yeah, it's like what was the
And that's
stakes?
it.
How did they change? There was nothing.
Yeah. So I don't want it to be that sort of ending. So if it ends happily, I want it to at least end unhappily for somebody.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna die.
All right. Well, we are somehow at like 90 minutes already,
Oh,
and I
jeez.
didn't expect this to go quite as long. But yeah, let's wrap it up with just a couple more questions here. There was one
Okay.
question from Tom that I didn't didn't want to forget. He sent it a while ago. So he said he loves hearing about like when writers kill their darlings. And was there any scenes that you were like really attached to and it kind of hurt to take that out? Or
Yeah, for sure. There was like 3 whole chapters where they were walking through the swamp and they were just having fun. I was having fun, they were not having fun, but they were walking through the swamp, and they met some like swamp villagers in Deshaun, and that was just super fun for me to write. And I got to do tons of like horse research, and the different bog and swamp and wetland environments that I had to research to see which one I wanted them to go through, which one would be the worst for them. And I had so much fun just thinking of swamp creatures and what swamp culture would be like for these Deshanian villagers. And there was nothing in there that had anything to do with the plot. And so, I mean, they just randomly meet some villagers that they're never going to see again.
Yeah.
And so I had to delete those 3 chapters. That was kind of sad, just because I really liked it. But
what were they doing in the 3 chapters? That's quite a lot of page time.
traveling the swamp and talking to people on the way. They stopped in a swamp village to hang out.
So
not really to hang out. They were being accused of horse theft.
Okay. Is this what actually killed the horse?
No, this is not. That's a different. That was a horse in Minilaf. She killed him when she was breaking Ramus up. So this horse is Darla, the named horse in the book. So Darla, which I think I lost her in book 2 again. Like I just keep misplacing.
It's hard to keep track of everybody. Yeah. Your innumerable characters, including a horse.
But Darla probably would not have gotten a name if not for these 3 chapters. But she, like, Sirilov and Ramus and Axley get accused of horse theft because they have stolen Darla the horse, who's a marsh tacky. I did a bunch of research on marsh tackies, which is like a specific breed of horse that's actually kind of local to me. Super fun. Look into marsh tackies. They're like going extinct, but they're like amazing horses. They can live like anywhere basically and eat junk. And, they've got some resistance to like brush of the hoof or whatever. The rot that they get in the hooves. So anyway, they're great horses. So there was a bunch of stuff about this marsh tacky Darla and how they'd stolen her, and they basically just have to go through like a mini trial after they've stolen this horse and get through it. But yeah, it had nothing to do with the plot.
It sounds like very self-contained, and Tom is saying you should think about posting that as like bonus content or something.
Yeah, cool. I may edit it at some point, and it doesn't really fit with the plot now though, because Axley was awake during these 3 chapters, and then I just kind of conked her out,
Oh yeah. And, okay, so
so she was unconscious. Yeah, for the swamp chapters that actually got in. But I do want to write like a novella, like a swamp Rapunzel.
I love all these just twisted fairy tale retellings you've got going on.
Yes. So the swamp Rapunzel, whose like tower gets kind of like, if you build something in a very moist environment, it just breaks down. It's gonna
start sinking.
Yeah, so her tower is just like sinking and eroding and cracking, and eventually she just gets out because it's the swamp. And so I do want to write that, and I'm pretty excited about that. But
is that going to be set in the same world, or is this like a standalone type thing?
I've got tons of novella ideas for this world, and I do want to eventually like move on from this world, and I might have to take a break from it, but I want a sci-fi series where like I talk about the meteorites before they're on this random planet with the humans. I don't want to say it's Earth. It's not Earth in my brain. It's just somewhere different that has humans. But I want to write that sci-fi series, and then I want to write all my little novellas about like each character, like Tarly's story. Like nobody really likes Tarly as much as me, but I want them to. So I may actually be stuck in this world forever for the rest of my writing career.
That just means less world building work and extra stuff that you need to do. So I think that's a good idea.
I mean, I love the world building though. Like it's that's so true. Much fun to just like watch it grow into a monster. Clearly.
Now it seems like you really thrive on like doing a lot of like in-depth research, even if not not necessarily all of it makes it to the page. Like hearing you talk about like how it's grounded in psychology, and like I honestly thought marsh tackies were something you made up, but it's more research. Like all the raccoon research you do and plants and everything.
I find it really fun, which is, strange. I hated college. I hated researching everything in college because there is no like point. I wasn't doing anything with that knowledge. It's just
Yeah,
like kind of
it's
like
like you're doing it for an
learning
assignment.
it, and like I might get to use it in like 5 years after I graduate and get a job, and maybe it'll come up. But then like when you're researching for a book, you're like creating something
Mm-hmm.
with that research, and so you get to like make it into your own thing. And I don't know why I use real research even. Like it's fantasy. I could just say it's magic, but I don't like to do that.
You could, but I feel like it feels so much more grounded the way you've done it. Like even the like just the fact that Axley, like when she gets really seriously injured, she like sprouts roots to try and heal. Like that to me was like so cool seeing that happen. It made it feel like, okay, this is like a really well thought out sort of magic system, and like the culture and everything. It was all just really well done.
Katarina gave me the chance to like explain that one, like with
Mm.
the like tree clippings. It was fun to actually be able to like explain something about plants. you
Is
know,
that like grafting, when you put two
yeah, yeah.
bits
When you
together and they
graft a
sort
tree,
of become the same?
yeah. So, but I figured too much of that and it would just annoy readers. But I gave myself that one little scene. But I did think it would be really fun to just have like this really creepy, like the romance is going so good in the beginning, and then he forgets, and then like the next time he sees her, she's literally covered in like roots that are like squirming out of her abdomen wounds, and you know, that,
And he still
that
falls back in love with her. You know, it's a
yeah.
better love story than Twilight.
I don't know about that. I do really like the Twilight books. It's embarrassing to admit, but they're very like clear cut, and like as I get older, I really love Charlie.
Mm.
Charlie's just great.
I
But
I'll admit I've never read them. I only know the meme. So
uh, yeah, I guess I was the young woman at the right age
yeah, it hits you at the right
to
time.
enjoy Twilight. Yeah, it was definitely a favorite once I read it, just because it was, I don't know, it was easier to read than most books. Like
Mm.
it was just so simple, and it was also the only kind of like modern book I like because it was kind of rural. Like most modern books are in the city, and I really hate that. I like rural settings though, and it was just really fun to kind of be in like Forks, Washington, and like at a small school. It was really relatable for me as a person in a
Mm.
small town, and people give it crap, but it's really well written, and like the age gap might be a little bit of a problem, but I just the romance for me is with Charlie now as an adult, so that's all I care about.
I feel like any book that gets that popular is gonna be clowned on to some degree. People will always be able to find some problematic aspect, probably.
Yeah,
So
like you
that's fair.
can talk crap about it all day. People can always find something wrong with it, but it was a really well-written series, and say what you want about it, but she finished that series. Unlike
It's true.
some other authors like George R. R. Martin and Patrick Rothfuss. At
Yeah.
least she had a clear plan from like start to finish, and she executed it so well. It's like one of the best endings in a series that you can like. You haven't read the books, so you don't know, but they're different from the movie endings.
I
But
haven't seen those
one of
either.
the no,
It's all
well,
right. You can.
the
We're on a spoiler podcast. You can spoil things.
it's too complicated. There actually was a lot of like world building in Stephanie Meyer's vampires. They're not just like garlic and sunlight.
Garlic and
Some of it is,
sparkles.
yeah, some of it, I was gonna say the sparkles definitely ruined it a little bit for me, but if I ignore the sparkles, the world building is somewhat enjoyable for me still. Um, but yeah, the ending ended up being like really satisfying how Stephanie Meyers like pulled that together. So I won't talk crap about Twilight, and that's why I ended up following that Brit girl because I was just low key stalking all her Twilight posts. And but if I mention Twilight like on my page, I feel like people are gonna assume that I'm like a romance reader, and that
Yeah, the
They're gonna
cover's
get
not
the
doing you
wrong
any favors already. You're gonna just like
Yeah,
deepen that expectation.
I've got to control my image and only talk about the books that I started reading in the last like 10 years. Like the I guess it's been more than 10 years. Okay, the last 15 years. But the books I started reading in like high school and things, even though I still have so much love for those, it's not remotely what my book is like anyway.
Hmm.
Like I read a lot of Kate Elliott and Mercedes Lackey, and I love them as authors still, but I just typically don't mention them because I know what impression that gives to other people.
Yeah, it's hard as an author to control your image in that way, but
Yeah,
oh
gotta
well. Just is
get a
what
new
it
cover
is.
and a new blurb.
Yeah, you're taking some pretty drastic actions, redoing your cover and everything, but
Yeah.
yeah. Um, all right, one thing I did not want to let you get away without talking about is the alien stuff. Okay, so
Oh, alien stuff. Yeah.
yeah, I loved that sequence in the middle where Axley like goes and breaks into the church, and she comes back and she's like kind of drunk, or she's almost like on
Star drunk.
hallucinogens. Yeah, is that what it's called? Star drunk?
That's what I've been calling it. It doesn't
Okay.
actually have a name. So Axley is like a defective alien, basically. And
Now, what do you mean by
since this is
alien though?
never gonna be in the series, like it's never gonna turn full sci-fi. It's gonna be hinted at largely. But so these meteorites come and they've got kind of like an infectious organism in them that
Mm.
absorbs the DNA of everything that gets destroyed by this impact. So the meteor hits this fire, everything in that radius gets absorbed, and that star becomes a new creature. Like it holds the DNA of all those things to create something new. And so
Hmm.
Rorik was the first fallen star, and he's kind of like the leader of these alien things, even though he doesn't remember it. So like a catastrophic event sends them into like this like more primitive form and to this planet. And so Rorik, grows into Rorik. He grows into himself. And I actually have like a short story half written that like has his little metamorphosis process from like meteor into like tree king.
So he
And
starts off
then
as the meteor and then becomes a Spriggan.
yes, he
Ooh.
starts off as the meteor and becomes the Spriggan. So the meteors are like little DNA eggs, basically.
Hmm.
And his gift, Heartfire, is like the main gift of all these aliens, and so he can actually wake up the other stars. And so he went around in the beginning doing that. He just started waking up other stars, and they were like turning into like whatever DNA that they had found on this planet that would help them survive on this planet more easily than if they had come in their original forms.
Hmm.
And and so he's like waking them up, but like none of them are like him. And so that's when he rips his heart in half and uses the other half of his heart to create Dawn, um, so that he can, have a person who's like him. And so
Hmm.
he creates Dawn, and then they have the Spriggan children. And he creates Dawn by burning a woman alive.
Oh,
Um,
jeez.
but uh,
Yeah,
so
that's
fun.
those
That's
dark
going to be a
aspects
scene
of the
from
book
book
again.
two. It's going to be a really, really exciting scene in book two, where he creates Dawn. So it does go into the backstory a bit.
That's cool.
But that makes, since he only has like half of this heart left, he can no longer wake up these other stars. And now they actually make him sick because he's like super attracted to them because he knows he's supposed to be doing something with them. But since he's only got like a piece of this heart left, he can't wake them up. They just like make him violently, violently ill.
Hmm.
And since Axley has like, she's his daughter, she has a piece of that heart. They also make her incredibly violently ill. And so that was like a fun little hint about like the future of the books, and also to hint that there are other things that came from the sky. Like the meteors didn't just make Spriggans; they made other things that might come up in book 2 and 3, maybe
Like King Henry.
like the Baskets, like King Henry. Yeah. So King Henry is like a completely different, but like I kind of hinted that he's a little different. He's just a little different.
Yeah, I definitely
And
got like a sense that he's got some magical abilities. I don't know exactly what they are. I can't put my finger on them, but like he definitely can like read people, almost like he can read their thoughts, but not quite.
Yes, and there's like big hints in there in book one that I won't spoil book two, but the answers are all there. I did so much
Oh
foreshadowing, like
man.
with Axley and Henry in those scenes.
I think that's what I'm most excited about in book two, is just seeing uh, like what was Henry trying to do. Like I assume it's gonna like sort of come to fruition in book two, or like maybe be thwarted in some way, but I want to know. I need to
Absolutely.
know more
You're gonna
about King
find out
Henry.
early. Like I figured I'd kept a lot of the answers like so tight wrapped in book one that I would just open up with a bunch of answers in book two. So like chapter one is just like answers. Like you finally know what's going on, and they're just basically like you're gonna learn it with Grimm and Henry in the worst way possible. And then the next chapter goes to Axley and how miserable she is, basically. So
Right back to Axley's miserableness.
yeah. So it's been a fun book though, and like I'm really excited to rewrite the 10 chapters that I need to rewrite now because I messed up a plot thread,
Oh,
and
it's rough.
and then get it to people.
Oh, so it's like pretty close to being done at that point if you're sending it out to alpha or beta readers after you finish
I've
editing that.
I've sent it to a couple beta readers already just to get an idea of like if I'm even doing things remotely well. Um, but I've had to rewrite a lot since then. Like some of the feedback I got, I realized, okay, I really need to take this thread and move it somewhere else and fix a bunch of things. So then I'm probably going to have one more round of beta readers, but I need to actually rewrite a bunch of it before I do that. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
not really soon. It's going to take me forever.
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel like it always ends up taking longer than you expect. Are you trying to release the book this year, or is it like next year?
I am. I was actually thinking that I would be done by December of last year, and that didn't
Mm.
work. So now, now I'm hoping for like March, but that's like really optimistic.
Yeah, that's like
Uh,
2 months away. That's very soon.
yeah, like as the closer I get to March, the more optimistic that seems because I've got like so much to do. So I really don't know. Hopefully it's this year, but I'm not gonna rush myself anymore because it makes me not work as quickly when I'm rushed. Like
Hmm.
I feel so much pressure that I just can't get anything done.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's the strategy these days. Is just say it's done when it's done and put it out, like when you're
Yeah.
happy with it.
At least I'll be faster than George R. R. Martin and Patrick Rothfuss. I know
That's a
that.
pretty low bar.
Like it will eventually come out. There will be another book. So
I'm always like trying to hold myself to absurd standards. I'm like, why am I not releasing these as fast as Brandon Sanderson? Why am I not writing
yeah.
200,000 words a month like Ryan Cahill? What's going on here?
Yeah, there's definitely people who work a lot faster, but I think
Hmm.
for us world building that's it does take a little bit longer.
Yeah, that's it's okay. Everybody goes at their own pace. But
Yeah.
Ed said the alien stuff you were explaining. He said, "LOL, this is the lore from Transformers."
Oh, it kind of is. It kind of is the lore for Transformers.
Yeah, I was watching his interview with Kay's Hidden Shelf, and he was talking about how he was inspired by Transformers for his new Redwall pirate series that he's working
Nice.
on. You guys are
These are
like the
good movies,
Transformers in the
man. It was
background.
a good show. Like Transformers. But I can't say I was, consciously trying to
Yeah,
channel Transformers for those aliens. I'm sure it actually seems like a lot of different alien plots,
yeah.
but yeah,
I was thinking like alien xenomorphs, because I know they sort of like absorb your DNA and try and adapt in that way. I don't know exactly how it works, but that's the vibes I
yeah,
was getting.
definitely like the standard horror alien. I think does that like uses people DNA and
Hmm.
animal DNA to create little monsters.
Yeah.
But so not super original, but I
What
do
is
want to
these
write
days, right?
like a sci-fi series that kind of talks about like why they ended up on this random planet. Have the ending be something that people who read Starlight Joel would like already know.
That's a great idea. Like it's like a secret tie-in. You don't. It's not explicit until like the end, and there's enough of
Yeah,
a hint
the
that you can
epilogue
get
is just like a meteor shower and like some like half-naked humans running around.
it. Accidentally hit with a meteor, turn into a spriggan.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're getting pretty close to finishing up here. I only have one more question for you. Is there anything,
Okay.
any detail in your book that you're like super excited about that you've never been able to talk about before? Like no one's picked up on it, anything like that?
Oh, man.
I know I saved the hard one for last.
I'm unprepared for this question. There's a lot of like little fairy tale hints and stuff, and like but like a lot of people are picking up on them now. Like somebody mentioned like the Arthur Uther um connection in like one of the reviews recently, like because it is a King Arthur retelling in its own way. Like I
Mm.
wanted to ruin that too. Don't want to leave Arthur out. Um, and the looking glass with the Watchers. Britt actually pointed that out. I was super excited. So like his glass shards are not mirrors, but they are looking glasses. Like they're so
Mm.
that was fun. And the okay, let's not. So Red Riding Hood will come up in book 2, but I don't want to spoil that. But it should be obvious once you think about the
Now
night
that I
seer
know,
eyes.
I'm expecting it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, the Sleeping Beauty. Nobody's pointed that out, but I don't know. The book, I do, I do feel like it's a little bit more than fairy tales. Like even though I'm like ruining all these fairy tales in like my small ways, like they all just grew so much further than that I can understand why people aren't like noticing that. And even though Baj isn't, she's beautiful to Axley and only to Axley, so like that kind of makes sense why people would not think of her as Sleeping Beauty, even though she's in a glass casket.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
definitely not just like ripped off fairy tales or anything. Even though we've talked about like how many different ones you're pulling in, but yeah, they're all like very, they have like their own unique twists and they all fit together. It's like you've created like a fairy tale like interconnected universe here.
mostly I just wish people would guess more. I guess that's
Mm.
like I want somebody to guess book 2 stuff. I want them to guess like who the real villain is. I want them to like guess all these little things that I put in. Because I'm a guesser. I guess I want people to be more like me as a reader, and like whenever I'm reading, I just guess everything. But how would I even know if people were guessing? Like I didn't even
I
write
know.
reviews before like last year, and I don't ever include my guesses in my reviews because I'm like, will that spoil it? But I want people to message me when they have guesses, when they think they know what's going to happen, because it's fun for me when people get things right. I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess
And
there,
as
there
far as
really is
like
just like no
details.
forum for it. Like where you should, like how do we get in contact with you? I guess like a DM, like you said.
Yeah, you can really, really just DM me about book stuff, as long as you're not weird, you know.
Yeah. Well, Ed once
But
again stole the exact thought out of my head. He said, the real villain was the friends we made along the way.
pretty much, they're all the real villains. Yeah.
they, they really are, it seems like, from what you're saying. Baj is going to be a villain. Ramus is a villain. Axley's a villain. Jory sort of ended up being a surprise villain in this one.
I wanted to give everyone villain potential. You know, I wanted to give them the opportunity to be a villain, and some of them have taken me up on it. Actually, like Hyde. You know,
Mhm.
there's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and so he was like my plan from the beginning. The first villain I was gonna have, and it's a lot harder to make him into a villain than I expected. I thought
Mm.
it was gonna be really easy to make it seem like he might have villain potential, but his storyline has kind of gone in the other direction, which is disappointing because I set up with his name, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, you know, from like page 1 of the book. So if I can't
Oh,
make
like
that happen by
Jack
book
is Jekyll?
3, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And so if I can't make that happen by book 3, I'm going to be really disappointed in myself, and I feel like I'm going to disappoint whoever that secret reader out there who is guessing. She's going to be like, I can't believe that you did not bring that home. Like, yeah, just silently disappointed in me, gives me a 1 star with no review. That'll be her
You'll
vengeance.
never even know that that's the reason.
Yeah, pretty much.
All
But
right. Well, we're somehow almost 2 hours into this thing, so I think we should probably wrap it up now. I don't want to take too much more of your time. But yeah, is there anything else you want to like plug? I guess Alstringer's Wrath is coming maybe this year. Anything else?
No, no. I think it's just the book. I mean, I've got merch and stuff. If you want stuff with raccoons on it, since there's 2 mentions of raccoons in my book.
Yeah.
But
And you can
there'll
get
be more
this
in the next one.
lovely thing drawn by E.C. Greaves, who is in the chat right now.
Yeah, Ed did amazing work on all my merch, and it's beautiful. So if you want a raccoon mug, get that one. It'll help support my second book cover.
And candles. I forgot I had the candle too.
Yeah, I also bought a candle, and I don't like candles. I'm afraid of catching the house on fire and leave like black marks on the carpets.
Oh yeah.
But it looks nice.
I've never seen an author selling a candle, so you've definitely got a unique store. I'll definitely leave a link to the store in the description for the video. Yeah, if you could hear that bell, that is my dog wanting to go outside, so I guess I should go attend to that. Well, thank you again so much, Elle, for coming on. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, hopefully we can do it again for book 2 after I read that one.
Yes.
All right.
So excited to read it.
I'm excited too. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching, and yeah, I guess I will see you in the next Talking Spoilers. Take care, everybody.
Later.